The scratch of the fountain pen on the thick paper echoed through the conference room like a scalpel cutting skin. Scratch, scratch. It was only 3 seconds. 3 seconds to write 5 letters. Elena. And with that simple gesture, with that black ink drying under the cold fluorescent lights, my life of the last 10 years officially dissolved. I lifted the pen. My hand did not tremble. In fact, it had never been so steady. Across from me, on the other side of the massive mahogany table, was Damien, my husband, or rather, my ex-husband from this moment on. He wore that Italian navy suit I had given him for his birthday and a smile he tried to hide. But it seeped through the corners of his lips like poison. Clinging to his arm like a venomous vine was Isabella, his executive secretary. The woman who had been taking my place in his bed while I cared for his sick mother and managed the finances of his company from the shadows. "It's done," Damien asked, snatching the paper from me with rude impatience. "You signed everything, the renunciation of assets, the confidentiality clause. Everything is signed, Damien," I said. My voice came out soft, almost a whisper, not because I was afraid, but because I did not want to waste energy shouting. Sometimes silence is the loudest scream. Perfect. Damien checked the signatures, his eyes shining with greed. "Well, Elena, I have to admit you've been very reasonable. No fights, no drama, you leave with nothing, just as you came. It's only fair. After all, I built this empire. You were just the wife who stayed at home." "Oh, Damien," Isabella intervened with a cruel giggle. "Don't be mean. Elena did what she could. It's not her fault she's so simple. She doesn't have the vision to be the wife of a magnate like you. She belongs to a small life and now she can finally have it." Isabella looked at me with fake pity. "We did you a favor, darling. We freed you from a burden that was too big for you." I stood up from the chair, smoothed my grey skirt, the one they called nun's clothing. I looked at Damien's lawyer, who did not even have the decency to look me in the eyes. "Can I leave now?" I asked. "Yes, go," Damien said, waving his hand as if shooing away a fly. "And Elena, do not look for me. Tomorrow I announce the merger with the Phoenix Group. I will be the richest man in the country. I do not want a bitter, poor ex-wife coming to beg at the door of my mansion." "Do not worry, Damien," I said as I walked toward the door. "I will not look for you." I opened the heavy oak door. Before leaving, I heard his mother, Lady Evelyn, who had been sitting in a corner like a gargoyle, break her silence. "Make sure she doesn't take even the pens," the old woman shouted. That woman was always a freeloader. We are finally rid of the parasite. I closed the door behind me. The sound of the magnetic lock was the end of a chapter. I walked down the long, sterile hallway of the law firm. I did not cry. My eyes were dry. My heart beat slow and strong. They thought I was Elena, the shy orphan girl Damien had rescued from the university library. They thought I had nowhere to go. They thought my silence when signing those papers was submission, defeat, fear. What Damien did not know, what his cruel mother and ambitious lover ignored, was that those divorce papers were not my death sentence. They were theirs. They did not know that by signing that document, Damien had just activated a hidden clause in the original contract of his company foundation. A clause he never read because he was too busy admiring himself in the mirror. And they definitely did not know that the mysterious CEO of the Phoenix Group, the company with which Damien planned to merge tomorrow to save himself from the technical bankruptcy he himself had caused, was me. Damien had just divorced the only person who could save him. And tomorrow, when he walked into that conference room expecting a crown, he would find a guillotine. Before I tell you how I executed the most elegant and devastating revenge in corporate history, I need to ask you a very important favor. If you have ever been underestimated, if you believe that dignity is worth more than all the gold in the world and that karma always arrives on time, give this video a strong like right now. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. What I am going to do tomorrow in the conference room will leave Damien wishing he had never been born. Believe me, you will want to see his face when he realizes who holds the pen now. The night of their celebration. While I walked alone under the rain, feeling every drop like a spiritual cleansing, Damien was partying. I knew because Isabella's social media was exploding. Photos of Dom Perignon champagne. Photos of the engagement ring Damien had given her. A ring that ironically had been bought with a credit card in my name that he thought was still active, but which I had cancelled an hour earlier. The embarrassment he would feel when paying the bill would be only the appetizer. They laughed. They celebrated. Lady Evelyn toasted to the new era. Finally, a woman of class in the family. she said in a live video. Not like the other one who looked like an old piece of furniture. I sat in my small apartment. The one I had secretly rented months ago under my real maiden name. Elena Vandervoort. Yes, Vandervoort, and surname that Damien never knew because I had used my adoptive mother's surname Vargas throughout our relationship. I turned on my powerful laptop. Not the old tablet Damien let me use. I accessed the secure server of the Phoenix Group. Welcome, President, said the synthetic voice of the system. There it was, everything. The real balances of Damien's company, Harrington Innovations, were in the red. Damien had been cooking the books, stealing from the employees' pension funds to pay for his luxuries and Isabella's whims. The only reason they had not been discovered yet was because I from the shadows had been moving money from my personal accounts to cover his holes. I did it for love. I did it because I believed in the marriage. I did it because I thought he could change. But when he asked me for the divorce to marry Isabella, when he humiliated me in front of his mother, love became something colder. It became justice. That night I stopped covering the holes. With one click, I withdrew the guarantee funds that supported his bank loans. With another click, I sent an anonymous alert to the Securities Commission about irregularities in Harrington Innovations. And with a third click, I confirmed my attendance at tomorrow's merger meeting. Assistant, please make sure the Phoenix Group CEO's chair is directly facing Damien's. And I want a mirror in the room. I want him to see his own face when his ego dies. I went to sleep. I slept like a baby. The peace of knowing that the truth would come to light is the best sedative. The morning of the judgment. The sun was shining over the city, but for Damien a storm was coming. I arrived at the Phoenix Group skyscraper. This time I was not wearing my submissive wife's grey skirt. I wore an impeccable white designer suit, needle heels that echoed with authority, and a designer bag worth more than Isabella's car. I wore my hair loose and wavy, and dark sunglasses. No one recognized me in the lobby. To them, Elena Vargas had disappeared. This was Elena Vandervoort. I took the private elevator. My assistant, a young and efficient man named Marcus, was waiting with a coffee. Madam President, Marcus said, everything is ready. Mr. Harrington arrived half an hour ago. He is very nervous. He brought his fiancée and his mother. They insisted on entering even though it is not protocol. Let them in, I said, taking a sip of coffee. I want an audience. I entered the observation room adjacent to the conference room. It had one-way mirror glass. I could see them, but they could not see me. There they were. Damien was pacing back and forth, sweating. Isabella was touching up her makeup, oblivious to the impending disaster. Lady Evelyn was criticizing the decoration. This place is too modern, the old woman said. When Damien is the owner, we will put velvet curtains. Relax, mother, Damien said. In 1 hour I sign the merger. Phoenix will inject $500 million into my company. I will be untouchable, and that stupid Elena will be regretting it in her little hole. I hope she starves, Isabella added. By the way, darling, the credit card failed last night at the club. How embarrassing. You have to fix that. It must be a bank error, Damien said nervously. With the $500 million I will buy you the whole bank if you want. At that moment, my lead lawyer, Mr. Hawthorne, entered the conference room. Good morning, gentlemen, Mr. Hawthorne said. Finally, Damien shouted, where is the CEO of Phoenix? I want to sign. I am in a hurry. The president is on her way, Mr. Hawthorne said, but first there are some prior matters we must discuss. What matters? Damien asked impatiently. Regarding the ownership of Harrington Innovations. What about the ownership? I am the owner. I founded it. Technically yes, Mr. Hawthorne said, opening a folder, but according to the audit we conducted last night, your shares were put up as collateral for a private loan 5 years ago. A loan you never repaid. Damien turned pale. That was handled by my wife, Elena. She took care of the payments. Surely she paid it. No, sir, Mr. Hawthorne said. Elena paid the interest from her personal funds to prevent you from losing the company. But since you divorced her yesterday and signed a clause renouncing any financial support, past, present or future from her, that money was withdrawn last night. What? Damien collapsed into his chair. Yes, which means the loan has matured and the creditor has executed the collateral. Who is the creditor? Damien shouted. I will pay with the merger money. The creditor is the Phoenix Group. Damien froze. You own my debt. That is correct, which means technically you are no longer the owner of your company. We are. And this meeting is not for a merger. Then what is it for? Isabella whispered, scared. It is for a hostile takeover. And to notify you of your dismissal as CEO. No, Damien roared, slamming the table. This is a trap. I want to see the president right now. You cannot do this to me. I am Damien Harrington. The president will see you now, Mr. Hawthorne said, looking toward the double doors at the back. The doors opened slowly. I entered. The sound of my heels on the marble floor was the only noise in the room. Clack, clack, clack. I walked toward the head of the table. Damien looked at me with his mouth open, unable to process what he was seeing. Isabella dropped her bag. Lady Evelyn clutched her chest. I stopped in front of the president's chair. I slowly removed my sunglasses. Good morning, Damien, I said. My voice was firm, powerful, the voice of a woman who controls empires, not the voice of the wife who asked permission to speak. Elena, Damien whispered in a strangled voice. What are you doing here? Why are you dressed like that? Do you work here? Are you the secretary? I laughed, a soft, cold laugh. Always so slow, Damien, I am not the secretary. I sat in the main chair. I turned it to face him directly. I am the president of the Phoenix Group. I am the owner of your debt. I am the owner of your company. And since yesterday, I am your ex-wife. Damien turned white as a sheet. He looked like he was going to vomit. This is impossible. You are a librarian. You are poor. I am Elena Vandervoort, I said, heiress to the Vandervoort fortune. I hid it because I wanted to know if someone could love me for myself. Not for my money. And you, Damien, you failed the test spectacularly. Vandervoort, Lady Evelyn screamed. Those are billionaires. Damien, you idiot. You divorced a Vandervoort. Isabella looked at Damien with hatred. You told me she was a gold digger. You idiot. Shut up, Damien shouted. Elena, my love. Damien stood up and ran toward me, falling to his knees beside me. This is a joke, right? A test. I passed the test. I was just playing. I love you. I have always loved you. Tear up those divorce papers. We can be the kings of the world. I looked down at him. I looked at the man who yesterday had told me not to look for him to beg for alms. Get up, Damien. You are wrinkling my carpet. Elena, please. You signed the papers, Damien, in silence, with a smile. You threw me out of your life. And in doing so, you signed your sentence. I signaled to Mr. Hawthorne. As the new owner of Harrington Innovations, I have made some decisions. First, the company will be dismantled and its assets sold to pay the creditors. Second, a forensic audit has been initiated. We have found evidence of your embezzlement. The police are waiting in the lobby. Police? Damien began to cry. You are not my husband anymore. You were my husband. Now you are a criminal. I looked at Isabella. And you? The credit card you used for that ring was an extension of my personal account that I forgot to cancel. I have already reported the expense as theft. Return the ring or you will go with it to the police station. Isabella frantically took off the ring and threw it on the table. I didn't know anything. He tricked me. I am a victim, Isabella screamed, pointing at Damien. You told me to leave her. Damien shouted back at her. They started screaming, blaming each other, showing their true nature as cornered rats. I looked at Lady Evelyn. The old woman was trembling. Elena, daughter, I always loved you. Those comments were mother-in-law jokes. You know you have a place in my heart. Lady Evelyn, I said softly, you said yesterday that you hoped I wouldn't take even the pens. Well, I didn't take the pens. I took everything else. The house where you live is in the name of the company. And since the company is mine, you have 24 hours to vacate. No, the old woman shrieked. I am an old woman. I have nowhere to go. I suggest you ask for help from the woman of class you wanted for your son. I pointed to Isabella. Maybe she will take you in. I stood up. Security. Remove them. I have a real company to run. 2 guards entered and lifted Damien from the floor. He screamed my name. He cried. He begged. Elena, I love you. Forgive me. Silence is the strongest answer. Damien, I said, repeating what I thought yesterday. They dragged them out of the room. Their screams faded as the double doors closed. I remained alone in the immense conference room. I approached the window and looked at the city at my feet. I felt light. I felt free. I had signed the divorce papers in silence, thinking it was the end of my life. But it turned out to be the beginning. The climax. Damien was sentenced to 8 years in prison for fraud and embezzlement. In prison he learned that I had donated the money from the sale of his company to public libraries. A final irony for the man who despised a librarian. Isabella had to sell all her designer clothes to pay lawyers and avoid prison. Now she works as a receptionist in a cheap gym. Lady Evelyn ended up in a state nursing home alone because her pride prevented her from asking for sincere forgiveness. And I am still Elena. Sometimes I wear designer suits. Sometimes I wear my grey skirts because they are comfortable. But I never lower my head anymore. I found someone new. Someone who does not know I am rich, but who brings me wildflowers and listens when I speak. And this time I do not need to hide who I am. Because he loves Elena, not Vandervoort. That signature on the divorce papers changed everyone's destiny. It destroyed them. It saved me. Thank you for listening to today's story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. See you in the next story.